In Dollard. Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Liz Reddy. Today's top stories: Donald Trump's visit to Ireland will continue later when he returns to his County Clare resort after attending D-Day commemorations in France. Waterford's first MEP, Grace O'Sullivan, says she'll be looking for every opportunity to do good for the citizens of Ireland. Directly elected mayors could be a feature of every local authority, including Waterford, in the years to come. And in sport, Waterford will head to Cusack Park in Mullingar on Sunday to play Westmeath in a senior football qualifying game. Donald Trump's visit to Ireland will continue later when he returns to his County Clare resort after attending D-Day commemorations in France. The US President will host a dinner in Doonbeg, which will be attended by Waterford Fine Gael DD John Deasy and US Ambassador Waterford man Dan Mulhall. It comes after the Trump family's arrival at Doonbeg yesterday evening. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe is on the Trump trail in Limerick.
On behalf of the people of Doonbeg and the County of Clare, a big thank you to the Trump family.
Tommy Tuberty welcoming Eric Trump and Donald Jr. to his bar last night, and it's not the only one the sons of the president visited in Doonbeg.
So every bar we've gone to, all of them, we bought everybody cocktails. So we're buying all.
In this corner of the country, at least, Donald Trump is very welcome.
They bought a drink, they spoke exceptionally well.
We're absolutely delighted to welcome him to West Clare. He's very, very welcome. He's brought great employment to the area, so it's all good.
I'm very fond of Donald Trump. I think he's a great president. He's so straight talking. If the media are with a candidate, I get worried.
But not everyone is happy to see the US president. Colin O'Gorman from Amnesty International has organised a protest.
What we're more concerned about are the impact of his appalling and hateful policies, his sickening rhetoric, and the impact it's having on people's lives.
That protest will happen in Dublin this evening, where it's expected the giant baby balloon of Donald Trump, made famous in UK protests, will make an appearance. Sean Defoe in Limerick.
Waterford's Grace O'Sullivan says she'll be looking for every opportunity to do good for the citizens of Ireland. The Green Party senator became Waterford's first MEP yesterday, taking the fourth seat in Ireland South ahead of Fine Gael's Deirdre Clune. She spoke to Cork 96 FM after the final count.
I've lived in Europe for years, so I speak Dutch and Spanish, so I want to try to now re-establish my European networks. I've been involved in activism, environmental campaigning, and today is Environmental Day, which is very fitting. So I'm going to use that life work to re-establish networks, and then whatever way I can leverage influence to get the best for Ireland.
Grace says she wants to create positive change for people.
Health, education, housing. Like, I've worked through all those areas in the Seanad, on the different committees. So I think now I will be looking for every opportunity where I can do good for the citizens of Ireland to improve their quality of life, but in a moderate and reasonable way. I won't be looking for the rich getting richer, but I will be looking to support the poor and the people who are disadvantaged.
Directly elected mayors could be a feature of every local authority, including Waterford, in the years to come. Limerick was one of 3 cities to vote for the proposal 2 weeks ago. Waterford and Cork narrowly rejected the idea, which would see mayors take over the executive functions of councils. Junior Minister John Paul Phelan says the vote was just seeking public opinion.
We'll be concentrating now on getting the legislation approved within the next 2 years so we can get a directly elected mayor up and running in Limerick. Once that has happened, and once we see how successful or otherwise it is, I think the case then will be to look at all other local authorities, principally the cities maybe first.
3 men with Waterford addresses have appeared in court in relation to the theft of a champion greyhound and an attempt to blackmail its owner for €100,000. The 3 were arrested and charged in Tipperary town in connection with the theft of Clare's Rocket in December of 2016 from the kennels of top trainer Graham Holland in Golden. The Irish Times reports that the dog was recovered by Gardaí 2 days after it was kidnapped and returned to its trainer. 35-year-old Paul Carew, 40-year-old Damien Carew, both of 11 Morrison's Road, and 42-year-old Keith Horrigan of 50 Kilcara Village, Ballygunner, were all before Tipperary District Court yesterday. Paul Carew is charged with stealing the greyhound and making a demand with menaces of owner Joe Cahill for €100,000. Damien Carew is charged with making the demand for money with menaces of the owner and also with handling the stolen greyhound at Mooncoin on December 6, 2016, while Keith Horgan was charged with handling the stolen property. All three were released on bail with conditions to appear in court again on July 24th. The CEO of Bus Éireann says they want to ensure that their buses are accessible to all. There's been an 80% increase in passenger numbers in Waterford since a fleet of 17 new buses were introduced at the end of last year. However, wheelchair users say the new buses are actually less accessible than the older vehicles they replaced. Waterford native Stephen Kent says they met with representatives from the Irish Wheelchair Association.
We will continue to dialogue with all of those people, up to and including bringing some of their members out to the manufacturing facility to ensure that we are building a specification that meets the needs of all of those users. So at the moment, 86% of our fleet at the moment are wheelchair accessible. In this case, the fleet that's gone in are low floor accessible. And some of the chairs, as we've discovered, can be large and oversized relative to others. And what we need to make sure is that we're accommodating all chairs where we can.
The South East Patient Advocacy Group say they've not given up their campaign for 24/7 cardiac cover at University Hospital Waterford. Over the last 6 months, the group say they found themselves being excluded from any say in the planning of the last 2 protests, which they claim appears to have been a political platform for a couple of individuals. They say they felt they had no choice but to temporarily take a step back until after the local elections. The group says the National Review is due to be published in the coming weeks and they want to move the campaign forward and have called on the people of the South East to drive the campaign. Former Waterford Minister Martin Cullen says the North Quays redevelopment has to happen. He paid a visit to the site with Fianna Fáil councillor and general election candidate Eddie Mulligan this week. Martin Cullen told Damien Tiernan that you can feel the hunger and demand for something to happen.
You can talk about the hospital, the airport, the university, all the North Quays, the issues, but you have to start somewhere. And I don't care what anybody says, 60 to 70 million is hardly going to register a drop in the bucket with the government. It simply needs, lads, let's just do it. And what I want is contracting done here, the council fully involved, and the money being released from government.
More than 24 people took part in a search overnight after a small aircraft was reported to be in difficulty in Waterford. The search operation took place in the Comera Mountains near Rathcormac. It was stood down by Gardaí shortly after midnight after nothing was found. Rescuers now believe it was a model airplane which went down in the mountains. The search involved a team from South East Mountain Rescue as well as Rescue Helicopter 117. Visitors to a Waterford city street this afternoon will feel like they're in Africa. O'Connell Street will be transformed until 3:30pm for Africa Day. The Afro-Irish community in Waterford is inviting members of the public to celebrate their culture with them. Committee member Gianni outlines what you can expect.
When you enter O'Connell Street from 11 to 3, you feel like you're in Africa. Even the smell of the food, sound of Africa, music, there'll be drumming, there'll be people singing, people dancing, people doing hair braiding. You're going to have a circus. We have Wobbly Circus. We also have a lot of artists from across the country, Afro-Irish, some of them born here, coming from Cork, Limerick, Dublin.
Waterford Council is asking people not to swim at Kilmurrin Cove. The local authority has posted a temporary do not swim notice at the Copper Coast Beach. High levels of bacteria were detected there this week following heavy rain. Waterford Council says further advice will be issued when retest results become available.
WLR Sport.
Thanks to Boland's Hyundai Waterford. Preview the award-winning 192 Hyundai range. See bolands.com.
Waterford will head to Cusack Park in Mullingar on Sunday to play Westmeath in a senior football qualifying game. Brian Luby, the Waterford captain, told WLR Sport he was not too disappointed when they drew Jack Cooney's side when the draw was made.
I suppose we were waiting for the draw, the last two teams to come out. We were always kind of towards the end of the draw. So when we got Westmeath, I suppose it was one where you were kind of happy you didn't get like Division 1 teams like Monaghan. But then also looking, you didn't get some of the so-called weaker teams in it too. So Westmeath are kind of that in between. They just got promoted into Division 2. So I suppose we were kind of approaching it very similar to the Clare game. It was that kind of reaction where they're probably a bit higher up in the league standings, but we know that it's well within our grasp to make a game of it and hopefully get the right result.
Waterford's Thomas Barr is back in action this evening in Rome in the Diamond League meeting. He's drawn in lane 5 in the 400 metre hurdles race and will be hoping to improve on his last 2 runs where he was placed 3rd. Thomas will also be aiming for his fastest time of the season so far. He faces 8 other athletes including 3 Americans. The race is timed for 7:05 Irish time. Republic of Ireland midfielder Conor Hourihane says they'll adopt a positive approach in tomorrow night's Euro 2020 qualifier at Denmark. Mick McCarthy's side go into the match in Copenhagen having won their first 2 games in Group D, but have not beaten the Danes in their last 4 meetings. Hourihane says they want to do more than just frustrate their opponents.
Yeah, that was the case the last time, I suppose. It's going to be a little bit different style of play this time. I think we showed that against Georgia. We won't be going there for a draw. If we got a positive result like that in the end of the game, we'd be delighted, of course. But I think we'll be going to have a little bit more of a go than we've had previous. And hopefully we can come back to Dublin with a good result heading into the Gibraltar game.
The Republic of Ireland's under-21s will look to make it 2 wins from 2 at the Toulon tournament this evening. Stephen Kenny's side take on Mexico's under-22s at 6:30 Irish time. Ireland started with a win over China on Monday, while Mexico beat Bahrain. In golf, Shane Lowry and Pádraig Harrington are level par after 2 holes of his opening round of the RBC Canadian Open. Rory McIlroy has just teed off. Waterford's Seamus Power is due out on course in the next few minutes, while Graham McDowell's among the late starters this evening. There's a 7-race card at Leopardstown this evening with the first off at 5:45. Sports news on WLR brought to you by Boland's Waterford.